All right, guys, welcome back to the infamous project, and we are continuing our journey on this 1991 dark emerald green coupe in the rough, trying to make it all shiny and pristine again. And we've run into a number of problems with the car that we've been addressing along the way. The most, I guess, obvious one was the rusty floor pan in the footwell on the driver's side, which has been addressed and fixed up, so no more rotted out Fred Flintstone style driving coupe here. And you know, we cleaned up the trim, we lowered the car down, painted up the calipers, painted the center caps up to get rid of that little bit of chrome that was in there, swapped out the headlights, and I actually noticed, so these headlights actually came off the blue coupe on air ride, and I hit them with the buffer. And you can actually see on this corner lens, I actually started cutting through the yellow. So I might actually just keep going the rest of the way and get rid of all of the yellow. Kind of wish I didn't burn through it though, because the yellow look doesn't look horrible, but the smoke look definitely needs to stay in place with the tint, the black wheels, everything else. I think it's a pretty nice theme for the car, generally speaking. But you guys might have seen, what video? I think I was doing the floor pan. And this alarm started just going off, and it was going off all day, driving me nuts, to the point where I just cut the wire to the siren. And I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to an unwanted alarm in your Foxbody, which I've actually had the request to do the video to show you guys how to remove an alarm if you have one and you don't want it. So I'm going to walk you guys through it because I had most of the interior out when I was doing the floor repair. So it just kind of makes sense with all of the under dash coverings out that we go through, find all the pieces to this alarm system, which there are a lot of them. So this is the perfect car to do this video on for you guys. Look at this, guys. 2 sets of key fobs. None of them work. Like the light doesn't even come on. Batteries are dead. Here's an old Arctic Start. I wonder if it actually had a remote starter in it at some point. Either that or it's just the alarm system. Same thing. This is all dead. There's sensors all throughout the car. So let's not waste any more time. Let's make it so we can throw these 2 remotes away. So first things first, let's start looking underneath the steering column in this coupe. All right, guys, so the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to remove all the plastics and the metal piece. If you actually have the metal piece on your car, remove all that stuff and start looking for obvious wires or boxes and devices, so on and so forth. So if you look over here, for instance, here is the antenna. So first things first, we're going to go ahead and disconnect that. And it's actually wrapped around one of the wiring harnesses here. And if you look a little further, you can actually see the CompuStar box that was all wedged into the driver's side kick panel. And you're probably going to run across a lot of zip ties and a lot of electrical tape when you're going through this. So the good thing that I'm doing right now is that there was nothing that this alarm was doing that was stopping the car from starting. So whether someone went through and already fixed that because they were annoyed with dealing with the alarm issues, I don't know. But with that said, I'll run you through some of the key wires just to make sure that you know, you guys don't cut something out to the point where your car won't run. So there's our brain, there's the antenna, and here is a whole just slew of wiring. Like, ooh, usually doesn't take much. You got to remember, the people that are installing this stuff kind of want to get the path of least resistance, so they're not going to go out of their way in most cases to, you know, make it look like it was integrated into the factory harness. There was only one car that I ever did. Unfortunately, I wasn't allowed to film it, and the guy, I know the owner is watching this video and he's laughing right now when I say it, because he never lets me film any of his cars. So they actually ran all of the alarm over to the passenger side, and it was actually all tucked up kind of near the heater box behind the glove box. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is that everyone knows that this is where your car starts, and this is where all the main wiring is and everything else. So people are automatically going to assume, okay, if they got an alarm or they got a reset button to bypass the alarm, valet mode, whatever, that it's all going to be over here. Well, whoever did this other one, they put it all over there. So anyways, this is kind of your typical setup scenario here. So I'm just going to go through and try and feed and backtrack as many of these wires as I can here. Make sure that when you are using your cutters, that you're not cutting anything important. So here we go. This is a CompuStar. This is probably a sensor, and it has a little dial on it, and this is probably for the sensitivity. So if the car moves, shakes, someone comes in it, this is what's going to trigger the alarm to go off. So now we've got that removed. Now moving along here, this one's interesting because this one is tapped into this brown wire, and off the top of my head I cannot tell you what the brown wire is or does, whether it's a door trigger. So this is a perfect time to investigate other people's wiring. So this has been T-spliced, no solder, doesn't look like any solder. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that. This wire isn't cut, so it's kind of your call, guys, and what you want to do. In a T-splice scenario like this, I will go through and remove any of the unnecessary wire that's left over. They did twist it quite well. I'll give them that. They actually passed through, opened up the wire. So you have a couple options here. You can cut this wire, use a butt connector. You could cut the wire, you put heat shrink on it and put a connector in there, or you could wrap it with electrical tape. The choice is yours. Depending on the wire or what it's doing, that could be another option. People always criticize other people's wiring. It's just, it's so easy to be on the other end of things. We all run into issues when wiring where maybe it's experience, maybe it's tools, maybe it could be a number of things, right? But it's easy to point the finger and say, oh, that guy did a shitty job wiring. So here's another one. So there's two that were tapped into there. And what else do we got here? Oh, look at all this. I love finding bulky wire like this. Well, I don't love it, but you guys know what I mean. This red wire here, I have no idea what this does. Looking over the camera here. So I found this wire when I was doing the floor. It was underneath the carpet and it's running all the way over to the passenger side. So yeah, we'll find that one out here in a little bit. Got to do one area at a time. So there now appears to be speaker wire, and I'm going to go ahead and say this is for the siren. They're both all used for the alarm. I'm going to go ahead and cut them, and they're going through the grommet at the firewall, so we're probably going to end up pulling those back out that way. And now we have a harness that is going over to the passenger side of the car. Ground here. Get rid of that. Okay, now we have a relay. Relays are always nice to find because you can use them for things like wiring up your electric fan. You know, if you want to do fog light, proper fog light install on your GT and actually run a relay so you don't overheat your light switch. Okay, so this is where things get a little bit more interesting. Okay, so ignition wires. These ones are a little bit more important to talk about. So, you can see there's two wires coming off this red with the green. This red with the green is a main power. So that one, we know we can just kind of cut it out for now, and I will repair this wire after. Same with the yellow. So it's sort of like your stereo, constant power versus switched ignition. Now, the most important wire out of this whole scenario that will keep your car from not turning over is this one right here. And that's why I'm going to leave some of this wire, this excess wire, because I'm probably going to have to join it like this. And it is this pinkish looking wire, which is normally white with a red trace, I believe. But this one is the one that goes to your starter solenoid to trigger things. Now, what else we got? One more wire over here. It's tapped, and I think that one's in the horn. So maybe they were using the factory horn as well. And then we have this wire, which is going up to the little LED here. So because that LED is drilled, I am actually, I'm just kind of pull that out like that. We'll see if we can pull this out. We can. So we will cut the LED, pull the wire through, and we will stick the LED back in. So you could put a rubber plug or whatever, but in reality, that's fine. Fills the hole, and now you can pull this harness through. So what's up next? We get to follow this wire over to the passenger side. Cut another tie wrap off. Okay, we'll go over here and investigate. Now you can see some wires don't look like the others, and I bet you this is what we cut. And there we go, one speaker wire, and the other one, which I believe is going to be for the siren. And I found what that other wire is for. There is a motion sensor, like a little mercury switch underneath the hood here. So this guy would be detecting any motion from the hood. So go through now. Cut these wires. Not cut these wires, cut these zip ties. There we go. To the passenger side now. More zip ties. And more speaker wire, and I'm assuming the speaker wire is going to go to more mercury switches. And oh, look at this. I think we found the kill switch, maybe. Let's see if I can get my cutters on that. So take a look on your side of your glove box here. So this relay looks like it was tapped into the trunk release harness here, which would have been allowed to, or made it so you could pop your trunk Okay. Looks like they might have tapped into the wrong wire at first, and then they taped that one up and then went into the other one. So if you cut the wires off, you know, behind the tape, you're gonna be okay when people wire things this way, so don't worry so much about that. Let's see what we got. Oh, that's the this is the power switch here. I don't know why it's all taped up from the back side. Guess they were trying to hide it. Okay, I should be able to get that from the bottom side. You can see more wire over here. Speaker wires off there. I think everything on the back side of the glove box is now good. Get this kill switch or valet switch or whatever it is out. And this is the funny thing about these alarms and how useless they really prove to be in many cases, because everybody installed them the same way and they all operate the same way. So if you know what wires are getting tapped into, it's generally pretty easy to bypass all this stuff, you know what I mean? So you remember back in the day, car loud exhaust would go by, it'd set off all the alarms in the neighborhood, and you know, people almost, it was like crying wolf. Everyone was just kind of sick of hearing all these alarms always going off. And you know, a thief could initially get into your car, probably pop the hood and cut the siren, and nobody'd really think anything of it. So whatever, it is what it is. I always said they were good if you're providing, you know, doing keyless entry, or you know, maybe you had shaved door handles like I did back in the day, and you needed to control your poppers. All right, so this is where things get a little bit more interesting, and this is the first time that I've seen this done over here. So you can see a lovely fuse job and a couple relays here, and you see all these pink, yellow, black wires. This is for all the power door locks. So typically the stuff is wired on that side as well. They've gone ahead and run the wiring over here and have done it on this side. So let's see here. This could make things a little bit more entertaining, because you can see they've cut some wires there and then here. So these wires need to get reconnected. So I'm going to leave some material. So clearly all the power, I think the locks were, can't remember if the locks were still working or not. But yeah, so they've cut the pink with green trace, pink with yellow trace, and those were you know, powering through the relays that was switching for the lock. You need one that would do positive, negative, and then if you're going the other way, it would reverse it, just the way that the system and the Foxbodies work. So gonna have to do some fresh connector work here. Let's see, this has tape on it, but I'm just gonna double check back here. See if there's anything else hiding. Oh, I think they just had it taped up, so that's fine. So just got to get this guy fished out. I don't, oh, man, that is a thick wire. I think there's a couple pieces of wire in that. Okay, it's going all the way back over to the driver's side, so we'll see where that's going. Oh yeah, I love this kind of stuff. So you can see this switch, 2 wires, and on the inside here, there's actually 4 wires on the inside. So it's thicker than Cat 5, but it's definitely not wire that's intended for alarms, nor is speaker wire to power your relays. But you know, again, we can criticize everybody else's work very easily. Okay, so don't know what this red wire is doing. We will go and investigate that right now. There's a red wire. And here is a red wire. So the name of the game, guys, just follow the wires, and you'll generally find what you're looking for. So there we go. Wasn't even hooked up to anything. Driver's side, here's this weird brown wire. All right, guys, so here's where that brown wire was going, this thick one. And this actually goes up to your neutral safety switch area. So they've unplugged it from up there and bypassed it, whether maybe there was a remote start. So they were doing something there with that. So I'm gonna have to reconnect this guy. There's a random black wire here going to the engine bay. So I'm gonna pull that one through, and I'm gonna reconnect these wires here and get those cleaned up. There we go. All right, guys, so I didn't know what that black wire was going to off the neutral safety switch, but it is in fact the wire that will trigger your starter solenoid. So here's the black wire, and you can see they cut the factory one, which is right down here, and put a piece of tape on it. And there we go, that's been hacked. So we're gonna have to reconnect this guy as well, and hopefully we can put this all back together and the car is gonna start again. All right, guys, so this is how I normally do my connectors. You know, some people say, oh, you should solder, you should this, you should that. Well, we all have our preferences. You can judge me if you want, but slide on a piece of heat shrink. One of these little connectors. Crimp that down. Make sure your crimps are good, guys. There's so many times where I've run into wiring issues and it's just been a crimp gone bad. There we go. So that's nice and tight. Slide our heat shrink over. I have a lighter, and this is the only reason why I have a lighter. I don't smoke, never have, never will. There we go, good as new. Actually, I'll even run this up underneath here. Okay. Okay. So you can see I just kind of utilized the material that was here. This stuff, again, I'm going to leave it. You know, all these joints were actually soldered, so the connections are good. We know they were fine. I'll just tape all this stuff up and it'll be out of the way. So now I got to go back here and fix this guy. Way up to this neutral safety switch. right. Whew. All right, guys, the same thing is here. I'm just gonna go cut these right in the center. For the test, look at that, everything is working. So one key thing that I probably should have mentioned to you guys, unless you're really familiar with your Foxbodies wiring harness and you know what you're cutting, how you're cutting, disconnect your negative battery terminal. You don't want to accidentally cut into something or cut through two wires and short something out. So keep that in mind. I've done these cars enough times that I'm confident when I'm working with the wiring that I know what does what. To be honest, I should still be disconnecting it, but that I don't know what to say. Whoops. Last section of the car did have another mercury switch that was hiding right up here. So that is now removed. And they got a little bit smarter in terms of anti-theft, and they have a switch back here, another one of those lovely brown wires that goes down to the fuel shutoff area. So I'm assuming they have it wired into the inertia switch, which you know what, I'm curious to know if it works. And if it works, I'm actually going to leave this one in here just because this is kind of the best way. Like, don't get me wrong, somebody could still get in the trunk and maybe figure this one out, but it's kind of nice to be able to shut this power off to your pump. Some of you guys that know this trick, if you guys had you know, your 86 all the way through 91, you'd pull that fuel pump relay underneath your seat. If you're a 92 or 93 guy, you would have had to pull a fuel pump relay out from underneath the hood. But that was one way to do some anti-theft without having to worry about all this wiring and everything else. So I'm going to hit the key forward and see if this actually works. I don't even remember what position it was in. So let's see if we can hear the pump. No pump. All right, so you know this switch works. I'm going to leave it be. All right, so I'm going to sit down on the floor here and let's see if the car still starts. There we go. Curious to know if the neutral safety switch works. And it does. There we go. So there you have it, guys. Successful removal of an old unwanted alarm system off this 1991 Foxbody. Here's all of the wiring, harnesses, relays, sirens, micro switches, everything else that came out. So there's only one thing left to do with this alarm: throw away the fobs. That's it.